Most people ignore old pennies, but collectors are hunting for a few extremely rare ones right now. Coins like the 1951 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny, the 1952 S. Lincoln Wheat Penny, the mysterious 1969 D. Lincoln Cent, the surprising 1970 D. Lincoln Penny, and even the historic 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Some of these coins look completely normal, yet rare mint errors and perfect condition can turn them into treasures worth thousands, even life-changing money. Today, we're uncovering the incredible story of the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark, a coin that many collectors are desperately searching for right now. And before you assume this is just another ordinary penny, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might feel an urgent need to check every old coin you own. Because the truth is, someone out there is holding one of these right now and doesn't even realize it. Let's start with the year 1942. America was deep in World War II. Resources were being redirected toward the war effort. Factories were producing military equipment, and even the metal used in everyday coins was about to change dramatically. In fact, just 1 year later, in 1943, pennies would be made from steel instead of copper. But in 1942, the U.S. Mint was still striking the classic Lincoln Wheat Penny design, a coin that had been circulating since 1909. On the front, you see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. On the back, 2 wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent. It's simple, it's iconic, and for most people, it's completely ordinary, but hidden among the billions of 1942 pennies produced in Philadelphia, the ones with no mint mark. A few extremely rare varieties were created due to minting anomalies and microscopic design variations. And these rare versions are what collectors are willing to pay life-changing money for. Now imagine this scenario that you're cleaning out an old drawer. Maybe it's a jar your grandparents left behind. Inside are dozens, maybe hundreds of old pennies. Most look worn and dull. But one of them says 1942. Would you notice it? Would you recognize the subtle details that could mean the difference between 1 cent and nearly $2 million? Here's where things get interesting. The most valuable 1942 Lincoln pennies aren't just about the date. They're about condition, rarity, and minting errors that occurred during production. Some of these coins display extremely rare doubling in the lettering. Others show unusual die characteristics that experts spend years studying. The average person, it might just look like an old penny, but to a serious collector, it could be a treasure. In fact, one extraordinary example of 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny with no mint mark, preserved in near-perfect condition and displaying rare die characteristics, has reached an estimated market value approaching $1.9 million in elite collector circles. Yes, a penny. And before you laugh and say, "There's no way I'd ever have one of those," let me ask you something. How many old coins have passed through your hands in your lifetime? How many did you spend without looking? Exactly, here's the reality most people don't realize. The United States produced billions of pennies over the decades, but only a tiny fraction survive today in pristine condition. Even fewer contain the rare characteristics collectors are hunting for. That combination, rarity plus condition, is what drives values into the millions. Think about it like classic cars. Most old cars are just old cars. But a rare model kept in perfect condition, that's where the serious money appears. Coins work exactly the same way. Now here's a detail that many new collectors miss. The no mint mark on a 1942 penny doesn't mean something is missing or wrong. It simply means the coin was minted in Philadelphia, which at the time did not place a mint mark on pennies. But among these Philadelphia coins are extremely rare varieties caused by worn dies, double strikes, and microscopic imperfections that create collectible anomalies. And here's the part that makes coin collectors lean forward in their chairs. Some of these varieties can only be detected under magnification. That means millions of people could have handled them, spent them, or stored them away without ever realizing what they had. Imagine tossing a penny into a vending machine that collectors would have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for. Painful thought, right? But don't worry yet, because many of these coins are still out there. They show up in estate collections. They appear in forgotten coin albums. Sometimes they even surface in pocket change. And when they do, the excitement spreads quickly through the numismatic community. Collectors call it the thrill of the hunt. Now you might be wondering, how do you know if your 1942 penny could be valuable? First, check the date and condition. A heavily worn penny might still have value, but coins with sharp details, clear lettering, defined wheat stalks, and minimal scratches attract much stronger interest. Second, examine the lettering and numbers closely. Certain rare, doubled features can dramatically increase a coin's value. Third, consider the overall preservation. Coins that were never heavily circulated, sometimes called mint state coins, are dramatically rarer than worn examples. And here's where things get exciting. Even among collectors who have been searching for decades, discovering a high-grade 1942 Lincoln penny with rare characteristics is incredibly rare. But it does happen. And when it does, headlines follow. Just imagine a moment. You send a coin for professional grading. Weeks later, the results arrive. The experts confirm it. A rare 1942 variety in extraordinary condition. Suddenly, that dusty penny becomes the centerpiece of an auction. Bidders from around the world compete for it. The price climbs higher and higher, and before you know it, the final hammer price reaches numbers most people never expected from a 1-cent coin. This is why serious collectors never ignore old pennies. They know the smallest coin in American currency can sometimes carry the biggest surprises. Now, let's pause for a second. Think about where old pennies might be hiding around you right now. A jar on the shelf, a drawer in the garage, a forgotten piggy bank, even an inherited collection from a family member. Most people overlook these places. Collectors search them carefully because history has proven that valuable coins often appear where no one thought to look. And here's something that might surprise you. Many of the most valuable coins discovered in the last 50 years were found not by professional dealers, but by ordinary people simply paying attention. Teachers, mechanics, retirees, even teenagers sorting through spare change. All it takes is curiosity and a closer look. But before you start emptying every coin jar in your house, there's one more twist to this story. Not every 1942 penny will be worth a fortune. In fact, most are still worth only a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition. However, the rare varieties and high-grade specimens are the ones that send collectors into a frenzy. And those are the coins experts are still searching for today. The next time you see a wheat penny with the date 1942, don't ignore it. Hold it up to the light. Look closely at the details because that tiny copper coin might be carrying a story that started over 80 years ago and could end with an extraordinary discovery today. Just imagine the feeling of realizing the penny you nearly spent on a cup of coffee could actually be worth enough to transform your financial future. Sounds unbelievable, but in the world of rare coins, stories like that happen more often than people think. And somewhere out there, right now, a 1942 Lincoln wheat penny worth nearly $1.9 million may still be waiting to be discovered. Maybe in a collection, maybe in a forgotten jar, or maybe, just maybe already sitting in your pocket. Yes, you heard that right, a penny. Worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a Lamborghini, more than most people earn in a lifetime. And here's the shocking part, thousands of Americans may already own this coin without realizing it. Because the coin we're talking about today looks almost ordinary. It's the 1952 Lincoln wheat penny, but under the right conditions with the right mint characteristics and in the right grade. This small coin can command staggering prices that turn pocket change into life-changing wealth. Before you spend another penny before you dump that jar of old coins into a coin-counting machine, watch this video carefully, because by the end, you might discover that the coin sitting quietly in your collection could change your financial future forever. Let's begin with a question. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not just glanced at it, but really examined it. Most people don't. Pennies are the most ignored coins in American history. They get tossed into jars, dropped in car cup holders, lost between couch cushions. But collectors know a secret. Sometimes the most ordinary coins hide the most extraordinary value. And the 1952 Lincoln wheat penny is a perfect example of that hidden treasure. To understand why this coin can be worth so much, we need to travel back to the early 1950s. America was entering a period of booming prosperity. The country was rebuilding after World War II. Industries were expanding, and everyday Americans were beginning to experience a new era of economic opportunity. During this time, the United States Mint continued producing the famous Lincoln wheat penny design that had been circulating since 1909. On the front, you see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the first real historical figure ever placed on a U.S. coin. On the back, two simple wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent. Simple, classic, iconic. But in 1952, something interesting happened at the San Francisco Mint. Coins struck that were marked with a small but powerful letter, the S Mint mark. Now here's where things start getting exciting. While millions of pennies were produced that year, only a tiny fraction survived in exceptional condition. And an even smaller number display rare characteristics and striking quality that collectors obsess over. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything that a penny that looks worn, scratched, and dull might only be worth a few cents. But the same coin, preserved in near-perfect mint state, can be worth thousands. Or sometimes millions. And this is where the story of the 1952 S wheat penny becomes truly fascinating. Over decades of circulation, most of these coins were heavily used. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, and countless pockets. They were scratched, faded, and forgotten. But a handful were preserved untouched, pristine, almost exactly as they left the mint. Collectors call these high-grade mint state coins. And when a rare coin survives in such remarkable condition, its value can explode. Now imagine finding one of these coins in your collection, that a small copper penny that once bought a piece of candy, now valued at a price that could buy a luxury home. Sounds unbelievable, right? But it happens more often than you think. In fact, some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were found in ordinary places. Old piggy banks, inherited collections, estate sales, even pocket change. And so the question becomes, could you be holding one of these rare coins without realizing it? Let's take a closer look at what makes the 1952 S Lincoln wheat penny so special. First, check the date carefully that you're looking for 1952 on the front of the coin. Right below the date, you should see the small letter S, indicating it was minted in San Francisco. Next, examine the coin's condition. Does the coin still have sharp details on Lincoln's hair? Are the wheat stalks on the reverse crisp and clear? Is there a natural copper shine that reflects light when you tilt the coin? If your coin looks unusually clean and well-preserved, you might have something far more valuable than you think. But here's something many people don't realize. Sometimes the biggest value doesn't come from the date alone. It comes from subtle minting characteristics, tiny variations, microscopic details created during the minting process. Collectors call these rare varieties and minting anomalies. And when they appear on the right coin, collectors will compete fiercely to own them. This intense demand can drive auction prices into the hundreds of thousands, sometimes even millions. Now imagine two collectors sitting in a high-end auction room. Both know that a certain coin rarely appears on the market. Both know that whoever wins the bidding may not see another opportunity for years. The tension rises. The bids climb higher and higher. $100,000, $500,000, $1 million. Suddenly, that humble penny becomes one of the most valuable coins in the room. And this is exactly why collectors continue searching through old pennies every single day. Because somewhere out there, hidden among billions of ordinary coins, are a few extraordinary treasures waiting to be discovered. Now here's something that might surprise you. Many people accidentally spend rare coins. Yes, they literally use them to buy coffee, groceries, or parking meters. Imagine paying for a cup of coffee with a coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Painful, right? But it happens. And that's why experienced collectors always say one thing. Never spend old coins until you check them first. If you have a jar of pennies sitting at home. This is the moment to take a closer look. Grab that jar. Pour the coins onto a table. Look for the wheat design on the back. Then start checking the dates, and especially the small S mint mark, because the coin you're searching for might already be sitting quietly in your home. But here's the twist. Finding the coin is only part of the story. The real challenge is understanding its true value. Many people make a costly mistake when they discover an old coin. They rush to sell it without proper authentication. Or they accept the first offer someone gives them. But in the world of rare coins, knowledge is power. Professional grading services carefully examine coins under magnification. They evaluate condition, authenticity, and rarity. Once a coin receives a certified grade, collectors trust its quality. And when collectors trust a coin, they're willing to pay far more for it. That's why the highest value pennies are almost always professionally graded and authenticated. Now imagine the moment when an expert places your coin under a microscope. They tilt the coin under bright lights, studying every detail. Minutes pass. Your heart is racing. Finally, they look up and say something that could change everything. This coin is extremely rare. In that moment, the penny you almost ignored, the penny you almost spent, suddenly becomes a financial asset worth a fortune. And this is why coin collecting remains one of the most thrilling treasure hunts in America. Because unlike gold mines or buried pirate chests, the treasure might already be in your possession. Right now, in your home, in a forgotten jar, or inside an old collection passed down through generations. So before you ignore another penny, before you assume that small copper coin is worthless, remember this story. Remember that the 1952 Lincoln wheat penny has captured the attention of collectors across the country. Remember that condition, rarity, and timing can transform an ordinary coin into a life-changing discovery. And most importantly, remember that the next incredible coin discovery could belong to you, but only if you take the time to look. Tonight, take 5 minutes. Check your coins, search your drawers, open those old piggy banks, because hidden among those ordinary pennies, there might be one extraordinary coin waiting to be discovered. And if you find it, your life could change with a single cent. Yet hidden among ordinary pocket change and forgotten coin jars across America is a humble wheat penny that has stunned collectors and investors alike. A coin most people have seen, but almost no one truly recognizes when it appears in their hands. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1951 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that under the right circumstances has been linked to staggering auction prices and elite collector demand. Some rare versions have sparked whispers in the numismatic world of values approaching $2.5 million. Before you dismiss that as impossible, consider this. Many of the world's most valuable coins were once spent on coffee, dropped in parking lots, or forgotten in piggy banks. And the 1951 wheat penny might still be hiding somewhere much closer to you than you think. But here's the twist. Not every 1951 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth only a few cents. What separates the ordinary from the life-changing. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and why collectors are willing to pay extraordinary money for the rarest examples of this coin. And there's one specific detail that almost everyone overlooks. Miss it, and you could unknowingly spend a fortune. Let's start with the story behind the coin. The year was 1951. America was entering a new era of economic growth after the turmoil of World War II. Factories were booming, families were buying homes, and millions of everyday transactions depended on the small copper cent, the Denver Mint. Millions of Lincoln wheat pennies were struck that year, each bearing the small but important D mint mark beneath the date. These coins carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, designed by Victor David Brenner. On the reverse were two elegant wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent. For decades, these pennies circulated quietly through American pockets. Most were spent without a second thought. But hidden within that massive production were a handful of coins so unusual, so perfectly preserved, or so flawed in the minting process that collectors now consider them treasures. And this is where the story becomes fascinating. Because the difference between a normal penny and a rare one can come down to details so small that most people would never notice them, but a tiny shift in the metal, subtle doubling in the lettering, or a coin that somehow survived 70 years without a single mark or scratch. Imagine a penny that left the mint in 1951 and somehow avoided decades of wear, vending machines, cash registers, and loose change. When a coin like that appears today, in near-perfect condition, collectors compete fiercely to own it. Why? Because perfection is incredibly rare, and rarity creates value. But there's another layer to this mystery. Some of the most valuable coins in history are not perfect at all, they're mistakes. Yes, You heard that right. In the world of rare coins, a minting error can turn an ordinary penny into a collector's dream. Think about it. When a coin die shifts slightly during production, the design can appear doubled. When the metal flows differently under pressure, unusual patterns emerge. These tiny anomalies are accidental fingerprints from the mint itself, and collectors love them. Certain rare variations of the 1951 D-Wheat penny have shown characteristics that drive intense interest among high-level buyers. Combine that with exceptional preservation, what experts call mint state condition, and suddenly the value skyrockets. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked closely at a penny? Most people never do. Pennies pile up in jars, glove compartments, dresser drawers. Some are tossed aside because they seem almost worthless. But imagine discovering that one of those forgotten coins could potentially be worth more than a luxury mansion. Sounds crazy, but it has happened before. Rare coins have sold for millions at major auctions, shocking people who once treated them like spare change. How can you tell if your 1951 D penny might be special? First, check the date and mint mark. Look for the year 1951 on the front of the coin. Just below the date should be a small letter D, indicating it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the condition. Coins that appear shiny, sharp, and almost untouched can command enormous premiums. Even tiny scratches or wear can dramatically reduce value. But don't stop there. Take a closer look at the lettering and numbers. Some collectors search for doubling in the word liberty or the phrase, "I in God we trust." Others inspect Lincoln's profile and the wheat stalks on the reverse for unusual details. These subtle clues can mean the difference between an ordinary penny and an extraordinary one. And here's where things get interesting. Many people unknowingly sell rare coins for just a few dollars at flea markets or garage sales because they don't recognize what they have. Imagine letting a coin worth hundreds of thousands slip away for pocket change. It happens more often than you think. That's why serious. Collectors always recommend one simple step. If you believe you found something unusual, never clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy its value instantly. Instead, place it carefully in a protective holder and have it evaluated by a professional coin grading service. These experts examine coins under powerful magnification, verifying authenticity and assigning a grade that determines its value in the collector market. And when a coin receives a top grade, the results can be astonishing. Collectors from around the world compete in auctions, sometimes pushing prices far beyond expectations. That's how small pieces of copper become million-dollar treasures. But the real excitement comes from the possibility. Because unlike rare paintings locked inside museums, coins circulate through everyday life. They move through banks, stores, cash registers, and coin jars, which means the next incredible discovery could still be out there. Maybe in your house, maybe in a collection you inherited from a parent or grandparent, or maybe in that dusty jar of pennies sitting quietly on a shelf. Let me share a quick thought experiment. Imagine you're sorting through a pile of old coins late one evening. Most look ordinary, but one penny catches your eye. It's dated 1951. And beneath the date, there's that small Denver mint mark. Your heart beats a little faster. You grab a magnifying glass and examine the details. The coin looks remarkably sharp. The lettering is crisp. The surfaces shine with a deep copper glow. Suddenly you start to wonder, could this be one of those rare high-grade examples collectors dream about? That moment of curiosity is exactly how many extraordinary discoveries begin. A simple question, a closer look, and the realization that history might be sitting right in your hands. Of course, not every 1951 D-Wheat penny will be worth millions. But the thrill of the search is part of what makes coin collecting so exciting. Every coin tells a story. Every date and mint mark connects to a moment in American history. And occasionally, one of those stories becomes incredibly valuable. The next time you come across a penny, pause before you spend it. Look at the date. Check the mint mark. Study the details, because hidden among billions of ordinary coins could be a tiny piece of copper that collectors would fight to own. And if that coin happens to be a rare 1951 D. Lincoln wheat penny in extraordinary condition, its value might surprise you in ways you never imagined. After all, fortunes have started with far less than a single penny. And somewhere out there right now, Someone is unknowingly holding the next great discovery. The question is, could it be you? What if I told you that a single Lincoln penny, one that looks almost identical to the ones most people spend without a second thought, has been valued at nearly $1.9 million? Yes, a coin worth 1 cent, potentially worth almost $2 million. And here's the part that should make you pause for a moment. Thousands of these coins may still be hiding in old jars, forgotten piggy banks, coin rolls from the bank, or even inside the loose change sitting on your dresser right now. Today we're uncovering the fascinating story of the 1969 D. Lincoln penny, a coin surrounded by mystery, controversy, and the possibility of extraordinary wealth. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why collectors are willing to pay life-changing money for the right example, and more importantly, how to recognize one if it appears in your own collection. But be warned, most people who once owned this coin had no idea what they were holding, and they spin it. Let's begin. To understand why the 1969 D. Lincoln penny can command such staggering value. We first need to step back into the late 1960s. America was going through a period of dramatic change. The moon landing was just around the corner, the economy was shifting, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with demand. Pennies were everywhere. They flowed through cash registers, vending machines, and grocery store counters every single day. And in 1969, one particular penny rolled off the presses at the Denver Mint. First glance, it looked completely ordinary on the front. You see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Above his head appears the motto, "In God We Trust." To the left is the word liberty, and to the right of Lincoln sits the date, 1969, followed by a small d, indicating it was minted in Denver. Nothing unusual, nothing rare, just another penny. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. During the minting process, coins are struck using steel dies that imprint the design on a blank metal planchets. Occasionally, something goes wrong during the creation of those dies. When that happens, it can produce what collectors call a double die error, a dramatic mistake where the design appears doubled or slightly shifted. These errors are extremely rare, but when they occur, they can turn an ordinary coin into one of the most valuable collectibles in the world. And in 1969, something extraordinary happened. That a small number of Lincoln pennies were struck from a die that carried a dramatic doubling effect. The doubling was especially visible in the words liberty and in God we trust, as well as in the numbers of the date itself. The result? A penny that looked as though the lettering had been stamped twice. When the first example surfaced, collectors were stunned. But the reaction from authorities was even more shocking at the time. The United States Secret Service believed these coins might actually be counterfeit. In fact, early discoveries were confiscated because officials suspected they were fake creations designed to fool collectors. Imagine finding a rare coin, only to have it seized because the government thought it was counterfeit. But eventually, experts carefully examined the coins under magnification. After detailed analysis, the truth became clear. These pennies were not counterfeit. They were genuine mint errors, and suddenly the collecting world exploded with excitement. The 1969 double-die Lincoln penny became one of the most famous error coins in American history. Now here's the part that might surprise you. Even though billions of pennies were produced that year, only a tiny handful of these dramatic double-die examples are known to exist. We're talking about fewer than a few dozen confirmed specimens. That level of rarity immediately sent collectors into a frenzy. Coin dealers searched bankrolls. Hobbyists combed through jars of change. Auction houses began tracking down every possible example. Because when a coin is both historically fascinating and incredibly rare, its value can skyrocket. And skyrocket it did. Over the decades, the value of these coins continued climbing. Collectors recognized their importance, and demand grew stronger each year. Eventually, pristine examples began appearing at major auctions. One extraordinary specimen stunned the numismatic world when it approached an astonishing $1.9 million in estimated value, depending on grade and condition. Just think about that for a moment, that a penny worth more than most luxury homes. Now, before you rush to check every penny you own, there's something important to understand. Not every 1969 penny is. Valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly what you'd expect. 1 cent. So how do you tell the difference between an ordinary coin and one that could potentially change your financial future? Let's break it down. First, look carefully at the date and lettering on the front of the coin. The double die variety shows strong, visible doubling, especially in the words liberty and in God we trust. The letters appear thick, almost shadowed, as if they were stamped twice. Second, examine the date itself. On authentic double die examples, the numbers in 1969 show clear separation and doubling. Third, pay attention to the mint mark. Here's where things get interesting. The famous double die variety was produced in Philadelphia, meaning it does not have a mint mark. Many people confuse this with the Denver minted 1969 D coin, which typically does not display the same dramatic error. But collectors still pay attention to high-grade 1969 D pennies because exceptional condition can significantly increase value. And this leads to another critical factor in coin collecting: condition. Coins are graded on a scale from poor condition all the way to mint state perfection. The better the condition, the more valuable the coin becomes. A penny that spent decades in circulation will show scratches, wear, and dull surfaces, but a coin preserved in near-perfect condition, that's where serious money enters the conversation. And here's a question that might make you smile. How many jars of old coins are sitting quietly in American homes right now? Millions. Grandparents save them. Parents store them away. Coffee cans, dresser drawers, garage boxes. Countless coins waiting to be rediscovered. Some people inherit these collections and never bother to examine them closely. But every once in a while, someone takes a closer look. And that's when the magic happens. There have been stories of collectors discovering valuable coins in the most ordinary places: pocket change, bank rolls, flea markets, even garage sales. Imagine pulling out a dusty jar of pennies, pouring them onto the table, and suddenly spotting something unusual in the date. Your heart starts racing. Could it really be? That moment, the possibility of discovery, is what makes coin collecting so thrilling. But there's also a sense of urgency, because every year more coins are lost, damaged, or unknowingly spent back into circulation. Rare coins disappear forever when they're overlooked. That means the remaining examples become even more valuable. So, if you have old coins stored away, now might be the perfect time to take a closer look. Start with your pennies. Look at the dates. Look for unusual lettering. Look for anything that seems different. Because the truth is, extraordinary discoveries still happen. And sometimes, the difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million treasure is simply the knowledge to recognize it. Before we finish, let me ask you something important. When was the last time you actually looked closely at your pocket change? Not just glanced at it, but really examined it. Because hidden within those ordinary coins could be pieces of American history and possibly life-changing value. The 1969 Lincoln penny story proves that incredible treasures can come from the most unexpected places. That simple coin, that a tiny mistake during minting, and suddenly, collectors are willing to pay millions. So tonight, before you ignore that jar of pennies on your shelf, take a moment, pour them out, grab a magnifying glass, look carefully at the dates, because somewhere out there, another rare coin might still be waiting to be discovered. And who knows? The next unbelievable coin story might start with you pulling out a single copper penny and discovering that collectors are willing to pay hundreds of thousands or even over $1 million for it. It sounds unbelievable. But in the world of rare coin collecting, this has happened more times than you might think. And today, we're talking about one specific coin that could quietly be hiding in circulation, sitting inside an old coin jar, or even resting in a forgotten drawer somewhere in your home. The 1970 D Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that most people would spend without thinking twice. Yet certain rare examples have stunned collectors with jaw-dropping values. In fact, some collectors believe that a rare high-grade or error version of this penny could potentially reach values approaching $1.2 million under the right circumstances. Before you spend another penny, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what makes the 1970 D Lincoln penny so special, how to identify the rare versions, and why one tiny detail could mean the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing fortune. Let's start with the story behind this coin. The year was 1970 and America was experiencing massive cultural change. The Vietnam War dominated headlines. The space race was pushing humanity further into the cosmos, and the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with the growing economy. Among those coins was the Lincoln penny, first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, the BY 1970. Pennies were still made mostly from copper, giving them that warm reddish color collectors love. That year, the Denver Mint produced the 1970 D Lincoln penny, marked with a small D mint mark. Beneath the date on the surface, it was nothing extraordinary. Millions upon millions were struck. Why would anyone pay serious money for one? Here's where things get interesting. In the world of coin collecting, rarity isn't just about how many coins were made, that it's about condition, that it's about minting errors. And sometimes it's about microscopic details most people would never notice. In the 1970, D penny happens to sit right in the middle of several of these factors. Now imagine this scenario. Resorting through an old jar of coins that's been sitting in the house for years. Maybe it belonged to your parents or even your grandparents. You dump the coins onto the table. Nickels, quarters, a few old pennies. Then suddenly you spot a 1970 penny with a tiny D under the date. Like a T first glance, it looks ordinary. But what if it isn't? What if that coin has one of the rare characteristics collectors search for? Because here's the truth. While most 1970 D pennies are worth just a few cents, certain rare examples have sold for thousands, and in extraordinary high-grade cases, the value skyrockets dramatically. And collectors are always searching. Let's talk about what makes some of these coins so valuable. First, condition is everything. Most pennies spend decades moving through pockets, cash registers, and vending machines. They get scratched, worn, and faded. But occasionally, a coin survives in nearly perfect condition. Collectors call this mint state. These coins look almost exactly the way they did the moment they left the mint. Sharp details, bright copper surfaces, virtually no wear. And when a coin like the 1970 D penny survives in extremely high grades, like MS 67 or higher, the number of available examples becomes incredibly small. In the world of collectors, scarcity equals value, and value can explode. Now here's where the excitement really builds. Some 1970 Lincoln pennies are known for a fascinating minting error called a double die. If you've never heard of this before, it sounds complicated, but the idea is surprisingly simple. During the minting process, the coin die sometimes shifts slightly when the design is being stamped. This causes certain letters or numbers to appear doubled, and collectors love these mistakes because they turn an ordinary coin into something unique. On some rare 1970 pennies, collectors have discovered doubling in the date and lettering. When viewed under magnification, the numbers can appear slightly doubled or thicker than normal. And when collectors see that, their excitement skyrockets. Why? Because minting errors are among the most desirable coins in the hobby. And when an error combines with a coin already decades old, demand increases dramatically. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked closely at your pennies? Be honest. Most of us toss them aside without a second thought. In fact, many people don't even pick up pennies anymore, which is exactly why rare coins sometimes hide in plain sight for decades. Imagine the irony. A coin worth a fortune sitting unnoticed in a dusty jar for years. Now let's talk about the numbers collectors really care about. Auction results. Because auctions reveal the true demand in the marketplace. Over the years, high-grade Lincoln pennies from a 1970 era have sold for impressive prices when graded and authenticated by professional grading services. Coins graded in top condition can bring thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. And if an ultra-rare example with exceptional eye appeal, flawless surfaces, and a unique minting error appears at auction, collectors compete fiercely. Prices climb, bids escalate, and sometimes the final hammer price shocks everyone watching. That's how coins once worth a single cent transform into legendary collectibles. Now here's a moment of honesty. Not every 1970 D penny will be worth a fortune. In fact, most won't. But the key is knowing what to look for, because the difference between an ordinary coin and an Extraordinary one often comes down to just a few small details. Look closely at the date. Check for unusual doubling. Examine the surfaces. Does the coin still have strong luster? Are the edges sharp and well-defined? Is the copper color bright rather than dull brown? These are the clues collectors use to evaluate potential value. And if you ever believe you found something special, the next step is professional grading. Organizations like Professional Coin Grading Services examine coins under magnification and assign an official grade. That grade can dramatically influence value. Think of it like the difference between selling a used car and selling a classic collector's Ferrari. Condition changes everything. Now imagine the moment when a rare coin is confirmed. A collector sends a coin for grading. Weeks pass, then the results arrive. The grade is exceptionally high, higher than expected. Suddenly, what looked like an ordinary penny becomes something rare, something desirable, something collectors around the country want to own. And when that coin appears in a major auction, the bidding begins. Collectors raise their paddles. Online bidders jump in. The price climbs higher and higher and higher, and the person who once held that coin as pocket change watches it transform into a remarkable payday. Now here's the question that keeps collectors searching. Could the next valuable coin still be out there, hidden in circulation, waiting to be discovered? Because history has proven that. Incredible finds happen when people least expect them. Old piggy banks, estate sales, garage sale boxes, even rolls of coins from a bank. Collectors have discovered rare coins in all of these places, which brings us back to the humble 1970 D. Lincoln penny, a coin most people ignore, yet one that might deserve a closer look. And here's something to remember. Every great coin discovery starts the same way. Someone takes the time to look.to, examine.to, question what others overlook.so tonight before you. Toss your spare change aside, pause for a moment, take a closer look at your pennies, check the dates, search for the mint marks, study the details, because somewhere out there, another rare coin is waiting to be discovered. And who knows, the next life-changing penny might already be sitting in your home right now. All it takes is one glance, one discovery, and one incredible moment, that a single penny that could change everything.